That was not the correct screen for me to be on. Good evening. Music was a little loud for my taste, but I don't know if it's too loud for stream. I feel like I don't need to change it for stream. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever time of day it is. Hello. It's the I am actually quite cold. I must admit. It's definitely the colder purity. But yeah, good evening. How we doing? It is Thursday night. That's it. Do you know how close at all times I am to like absolutely killing everyone with this mic? Because I had a realization before stream today. So literally while I was on the waiting screen there, I noticed that there was a little bit of dust that was accumulating on top of one of the freaky ear-shaped I don't really know what to call them. They're literally like I'm looking at it, trying to work out how to describe it. It's literally just an ear made out of silicone. It had dust on. You know when something's dusty? You know when something's dusty? You blow on it at full force to try and get the dust off. Did that maybe like 5 seconds before I actually unmuted the mic, and then I was like, huh, yeah, that's probably a good idea of not good idea of things to do. It's like, wow, I'm so nice and cozy and sleepy, and suddenly there's like just a loud noise. That was a weird noise, but it's kind of what it sounds like when someone like. I've been to pubs where there's loud music, and whenever someone has to like talk to you, they'll go like super close to your ear, and it's the most unpleasant sensation of wind rushing past your ear. It's just like, no, don't talk to me, don't look at me, don't witness me, don't do it, don't do it. It's not a nice sound. Or maybe some people do like it. Maybe some people do like that sound, but I don't. Look how floppy my hair is. Look how much my hair moves when I switch ears. Hi, I'm over here. Look how much my hair is moving. It's very bouncy. Your hair can be this bouncy too with... I don't know. I actually use pretty good shampoo, so... You too, if you wash your hair, you can have fluffy, bouncy hair too. I know, it's a miracle. How do people communicate before emotes? Dogs. Hugs. Phospho. I went through every single name. I have the solution. Oh, yeah, those emojis do. I have a solution. Cow emojis. You know you wanna like, hold on, where can we translate the flower into cow emojis? No, cat emojis. Cow emoji. Type that into Google, and there you go. There's a whole new world. I do think cows. I mean, that's true. Cows are cute. They're just like very large dogs with hooves. You could upload because I remember doing that on MSN actually. I used to do that a lot. Maybe too much. Just spam your friends with like stupid little emotes that don't mean anything. Hello Tinko, how are you doing? Anyway, welcome to Reading Stream. We are reading soon. Not yet. Once it reaches the 10-minute mark, then we will. I still have not been to my dad's to pick up my books. So we are sticking with the short stories from the short story collections. One time I replaced my whole no, oh my god, that must have been a mess. Why would you why? Oh my god, talk about illegible. Confess you no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm going to once I fix the PlayStation, then I'll admit that I broke the PlayStation. Okay, that's how it works. You go, well, I broke it, but it is now fixed. There was a problem, and I have solved it. Oh god, now I'm being cheered on by cute cow emojis. That almost makes it tempting. Unhinged teen ideas. That's true. We were all just unhinged teens on MSN. Oh god, I think I was a tween on MSN actually. That's even worse. The only thing worse than a teen is a tween. Ugh. Who would let me do that? Who would let me on the internet? Me, I did. But anyway, we are going to continue reading from my collections of short stories. This time, we are reading from my collection of Japanese short stories, as opposed to British short stories. It is actually from around the same time period. The last book that I read was last week's book was I think it was 1928, and today's book is from 1926, which is insane. These people were writing like 100 years ago. That means they're like dead now. Obviously that's the more important part. That means it was like pre-war stuff. That's weird. That's weird. They didn't even know what a computer was. These people live in a time where, like, to get across the ocean, like, there weren't even planes like we have planes. These people were taking boats for like weeks to just get across the ocean. That's wild. Maybe not, I don't know. I actually don't know much about how people transported themselves in the early 1900s. I imagine it was by boat. Poor dead people. Oh, they're fine, they're dead. They're not too bothered. Not being able to hear purity. Yeah, you'd have to come to England. You'd have to come to England specifically. It'll be like a Punch and Judy show where I'll have a little hand puppet of me, you know, and I'll just poke my hand of my little self puppet of myself like over a little wooden self-made stage, and then I talk unhingedly for 4 hours. For some reason that cow emoji got filtered. My YouTube was like, yeah, that cow emoji's bad. If anything reassures you, I hope it's this. I never want to. I also never want to meet anyone IRL, and that's why I'm glad I live in this century and not the last one. I worry that in the future centuries, so I'm anime, which is fun and wonderful, but in the future, I worry that the main thing is going to be like holograms, and people are going to have like video calls, but it's going to be like entire like 3D holograms, but it's going to be themselves, not anime avatars. It's going to go back to being humans. Disgusting. Did you just 360 spin the table? That's impressive. Alright, anyway, I should probably start reading. I don't know whether this is gonna last the entire hour, or maybe longer, or maybe less long. Oh no. Oh, what? Oh god, I think this is quite a long short story. Oh no. Oh god. There are 5 chapters in this one short story. Okay. I can take pauses between chapters. So, if you are not accustomed to how my reading streams work, I will be reading each chapter without... They made They did. Dogs and bears and cats and everything. What was I saying? Yeah, so I will be reading each chapter without reading chat. This is what I look like. You've got very sharp ears. Stop looking at me with those big old eyes. And then between each chapter I'll catch up with everything that was said in chat, and yeah, that's it. So if you can, please do get some rest. If you're going to be getting some sleep, I hope you have sweet dreams. If you're busy working or doing something, then I hope it goes well, and I hope that you are without stress. And yeah. Alright, so now let's begin the first chapter of what we're reading today, which is the story of Tomoda and Matsunaga by Tanizaki Junichiro. Technically, there should be a U on the end of the name I've written on screen, but it's fine. I'm gonna chill in bed listening. Yeah, get some rest. And thank you for lurking. Chapter 1. 5 or 6 years ago, on 25th of August 1920 to be precise, I received a letter from the odd province of Yamato from a woman I had never met by the name of Shigeko. I am able to specify the date here because, even after all these years, I still have the letter in my possession. I don't normally bother to read the many letters that arrive on my doorstep from people I don't know. Most of them from bookish young men and women desperate to share their love of literature. When I'm busy, I simply bundle them up and leave them to languish unread in the corner of my study. But something about this letter filled me with a strange urge to open it right away. It had been addressed not in pen, but with an ink brush, and the sender's name and address were in a hand that had about it an unmistakable air of old-fashioned elegance and grace. Mrs. Matsunaga Gisuke, Yagyu Village, Soekami District, Yamato Province. One look at the envelope was enough to assure me that it contained something more than yet another letter from a young woman with literary aspirations. The letter is a long one, but I will not let that prevent me from quoting it here in its entirety. Its contents go to the very heart of the story I have to tell. Dear Sir, I hope this finds you in good health despite the oppressive heat. Allow me to introduce myself. I am the wife of Matsunaga Gisuke, a resident of the village of Yagyu in the province of Yamato. I have never had the pleasure of making your acquaintance, and I realise that it must seem the height of bad manners for me to be troubling you with an unsolicited letter in this way. I hope you will be kind enough to bear with me as I attempt to describe the curious sequence of events that has led me to write to you now. I married into the Matsunaga family in 1905, when my husband was 25 and I was 18. As the eldest son, my husband had been away in Tokyo for several years before we were married, and had recently graduated from Waseda University. His family has farmed the land in this village for many generations, and even after our marriage, he did not have any particular work to occupy him. For the first 6 months or so, we lived a happy and peaceful life together. In the month of that year, however, my husband's elderly mother passed away, and his behaviour began to change in a quite distressing manner. He took to bemoaning the fate that had left him to grow old here in the countryside. He left home whenever he could, travelling to Kyoto and Osaka at every opportunity in an attempt to lift himself out of his depression. Things continued in this way until the summer of 1906, when I was expecting our first child. Quite suddenly, he announced with an air of unshakable resolve that he was leaving to go abroad, and that he planned to spend a year or two travelling in the West. Of course, I was appalled. The whole family was. We did everything we could to remonstrate with him, and opposed his idea in the strongest terms. But alas, our efforts were in vain. Nothing we said had the slightest effect on his determination to leave. I heard from my husband not once in all of the time he was away. None of us heard from him for more than 3 years. I was struggling to bring up our daughter on my own, wondering what on earth had become of him. When he returned in autumn of 1909, just as suddenly as he had left. Although he had never been seriously ill, my husband has always been of a somewhat weak constitution. His appearance now suggested that his time overseas had seriously impaired his health. He was pale and sickly, and suffered a severe nervous breakdown not long after he came home. For the next few years, until the end of spring in 1912, he lived a quiet life here with us in the country. He showed great tenderness to me and doted on Tako, our daughter. Little by little, his health began to mend, and his nervous condition improved. But then it happened again, in the summer of 1912. Once again, he gave no explanation as to why he had to leave, and refused me to tell me where he was going. All he would say was that he would be back again in 2 or 3 years, and that there was no need to worry about him while he was gone. Whatever happened, he said, I should make no attempt to trace him. Even if I did, he said, I would never find him. And so he left again, asking me to look after the house in his absence, to take care of our daughter while he was away. I could do nothing but follow his instructions and wait for his return. As on the previous occasion, he came home during the 4th year after his departure, on the autumn of 1915. Once again, he came back looking ashen and drawn, and exhibiting the symptoms of a severe nervous condition. He apologised for having stayed away so long, and for all the pain and worry he had caused me. He became emotional and prone to tears, and displayed an uncommon devotion to his wife and child. Gentleness and compassion marked everything he did, and he began to show signs of a new interest in religious matters. In the spring of 1917, the 3 of us, myself, my husband, and Tako, by this time 12 years old, made a pilgrimage to the 33 Kannon temples. Perhaps as a consequence of his newfound piety, my husband seemed to regain much of his strength soon after. He settled back into his quiet life in the country, and seemed much more at ease. I began to allow myself to contemplate our future with happiness, and to hope that everything might work out for us after all. But when the summer of 1918 arrived, he left again, setting off for parts unknown, and giving no explanation beyond the same few words with which he had left us before. It was nearly 4 years since he had returned in the autumn of 1915. Another 3 years have passed since then. Next year will be the 4th since he left home, and I am consoled by the expectation that we shall see him home again before the year is out. All I can do is wait and hope. I have no way of knowing where he is or what he is doing. I consider myself blessed to have married my husband, undeserving as I am. Together with our 2 daughters, our second child turns 2 this year, I continue to wait patiently. I certainly would not wish to suggest that he leaves home because he was grown tired of his wife. He has his reasons, I am sure, commitments and circumstances of which I know nothing. When he is at home, he is always gentle and considerate. Even when he has had to leave home, he has always done so with tears in his eyes, begging me to wait for his return. I do not want to give the impression that I resent my husband's behaviour. In normal circumstances, I should be content to live with things as they are for as long as necessary. Unfortunately, however, our eldest daughter, Taiko, has been suffering from pleurisy since the winter of last year. Recently, her condition has become serious, and I cannot escape the thought that each day might be her last. It breaks my heart to hear her feverish little voice begging day after day for a glimpse of her father. I am at my wit's end. The family attempted to trace my husband the last time he left home, but to no avail. We have been no more successful this time. Suspecting as before that he might have gone abroad, we made inquiries overseas as well as throughout Japan, but we found no clue to his whereabouts, and heard nothing to suggest that anyone matching his description had been seen in Tokyo, Kyoto, or Osaka. When I remember what my husband said before he left, that we would never find him, no matter how hard we tried, I must confess that the whole affair strikes me as somewhat strange. My husband was carrying very little luggage the last time he came home. Apart from his clothes, he had just one small travel bag with him. He took the same bag with him when he set out again nearly 4 years later. He guarded it zealously, of course, while he was with us in the country, and was adamant that no one else should touch it. I had no intention of prying into my husband's private affairs, but his inexplicable conduct had stirred a curiosity in me that I was powerless to resist. I knew, even as I did it, that I was committing an unforgivable breach of trust, but I could not help myself, and I did allow myself, just once, to take a peek inside. I found a gold signet ring with an amethyst setting, a seal inscribed with the name Tomoda, and a postcard, along with several dozen really rather lewd photographs of foreign women in a variety of poses. These I assume he must have collected as a souvenir of his travels in the West. The postcard was addressed to a Mr. Tomoda Ginzo, care of the Café Liberté, Ginza Owari 3-Comb, Kyobashi, Tokyo. The only other name on the postcard was yours, in the space set aside for sender's name. I remember that the card was written in pen, in a flowing hand, and was dated 7th of May 1913. It read along the following lines: "Sorry about the other night. How did things turn out regarding the matter we discussed? Looking forward to your reply. Your name is familiar to me, of course, from magazines and newspapers, but Tomoda Ginzo was a name I had never seen or heard before. I have no idea why my husband should have had Mr. Tomoda's postcard and seal in his possession, or why he was carrying with him a ring that must surely have belonged to someone else, as it was clearly much too large for his own finger. The more I consider the facts, the stranger they seem. Please forgive me for having written at such length. Is it possible that you might be acquainted with my husband, Matsunaga Gisuke? The postcard I found in his possession made me wonder if Tomoda Ginzo might be an alias he was using for some reason. Such are the circumstances that have prompted me to write to you now. I hope you will make allowances for my confused state of mind. As I have said, I am not interested in hunting my husband down. If you do happen to know him, however, please let him know that I have been in touch and informed him of our daughter's illness. I am sure he would prefer to hear the news this way, rather than directly from me. If you are not acquainted with anybody by the name of Matsunaga Gisuke, perhaps you do know a Mr. Tomoda? If so, perhaps you would be kind enough to tell me what you know about him and how I might get in touch with him. I hope you will forgive me for making such selfish demands of your time with regard to a matter which is surely no concern of yours. I am afraid I can think of no alternative but to rely upon your kindness and beg you to take sympathy on my predicament. I am including a photograph of my husband in case you might recognize him. It is a picture of the three of us, taken during our pilgrimage to the 33 Canon. My husband normally hates to be photographed, but on this occasion he agreed to have a picture made as a souvenir of our trip. He was 37 at the time, and turns 40 this year. I should be grateful if you were able to keep the contents of this letter to yourself, but I understand that circumstances might make that difficult. Please feel free to proceed however you feel fit. I do hope you will let me know if you have any information at all that might help. Respectfully yours, Matsunaga Shigeko. The letter had been posted on the 23rd of August and reached Tokyo 2 days later, when it was delivered to my house in Oyama on the morning of the 25th. I tended to sleep late, and I was still in bed when the post arrived. The letter unfurled across my pillows as I read. I need hardly say that its contents piqued my curiosity, but I was struck by Shigeko too. Here, I felt, was a woman who possessed a refinement that is all too rare these days. As I have said, her letter was written in an elegant and feminine hand, inscribed neatly onto a scroll of paper that was several feet long when unfolded to its full length. Her husband's family, she wrote, had been farmers for generations, but this was clearly a well-established country family of some pedigree, and Shigeko herself obviously came from quite a cultivated background as well. She couldn't have written an elegant letter like this otherwise. I rewound the scroll and sat back to read the letter for a second, and then third time. And then there was the photograph she had enclosed, of the two parents and their young child. I picked it up and took a closer look. It was a postcard-sized picture, a full-length shot that showed them dressed for a pilgrimage, said chats in hand, the daughter between her parents. Their faces had come out looking very small, and it was hard to get more than a vague impression of their appearance. But Matsunaga Gisuke, Shigeko's husband, looked much older than the letter had led me to expect. He was 37 at the time, she had written, but he looked to be in his early 40s at least. He was a thin, gangly man, with angular features and sunken, unhealthy-looking cheeks. It was not a pleasant face to look at. There was a glimmer of sharpness in his eyes, perhaps, but nothing to give the impression that this was an educated man who had been to university and then spent time in the West. To look at him, you would never have imagined he was anything but an ordinary country bumpkin. I didn't need to dredge up old memories. One look was enough to assure me I had never met the man. The name meant nothing to me either. I did know a Tomoda Ginzo, that much was true. but the Tomoda I knew looked nothing like the man in the photograph. It was inconceivable that they were the same person. Standing next to her husband was Shigeko herself, with a serene expression on her face and a quiet air of grace and dignity about her. Her photograph did nothing to spoil the impression I had formed of her from her letter, even if she was not exactly what you'd call a beauty. The picture was a work of a provincial photographer, and the old-fashioned way that the picture had been touched up made her look somewhat lifeless and doll-like. Still, there was something about her. Perhaps it was just my imagination, but I thought I could detect real intelligence in that oval face of hers. In her small, tight-lipped mouth and clear, gentle eyes. The pilgrim's clothes she was wearing heightened the effect. She looked like the kind of pilgrim you might expect to see on the stage, the picture of feminine elegance and refinement. Taeko, the daughter, seemed a sweet enough little thing, but she really had come out looking like a doll, and it was impossible to say which parent she resembled most. The letter and the photograph in front of me. I considered the details of the case. Naturally, it struck me as odd that a man I had never met should be carrying a postcard from me inside his travel bag. But that was not all. Shigeko had no way of knowing this, but the truth was that the postcard wasn't the only thing in the bag I had seen before. I was also familiar with the amethyst ring, and the pictures of European women. In fact, unless I was much mistaken, everything in the bag, the ring, the photographs of the women in lewd poses, and the seal, all of it belonged to a man I knew as Tomoda Ginzo. Tomoda had been wearing an amethyst ring for as long as I had known him, more than 10 years now. Indeed, I had seen him just a few days earlier, and I felt sure I had seen the ring then too, its stone glinting away as always on the ring finger of his left hand. And his fondness for taking photographs of foreign women was well known. He had a huge collection of them, which I had seen myself several times. All the evidence suggested that even if I had no personal connection with Matsunaga myself, a connection of one kind or another must exist between him and Tomoda. I decided to ask him about it the next time we met. No doubt he could help clear things up. Now that I come to think about it, it occurred to me that I knew remarkably little about Tomoda. We had been friends for years, but I didn't know what line of business he was in, or even where he lived. And when we met, it was often by chance. I couldn't recall that either of us had ever visited the other at home. I couldn't even say for certain whether he was married or single. I suppose it may seem strange for two men to be friends for more than 10 years and still know so little about each other, but in fact the phenomenon is far from uncommon among drinking companions who hardly meet at all, except to go carousing together. My relationship with Tomoda existed precisely on this level. I couldn't think that I had ever had the occasion to write to him about anything of substance, but I was prepared to believe that we had exchanged brief messages by postcard from time to time. The card Shigeko had found inside her husband's bag must have been from me. It was a long time ago now, and I couldn't be absolutely certain of the details, but I seemed to remember that the Café Liberté had been a favourite haunt of ours around that time. It was rare for more than a couple of days to pass without my seeing Tomoda there at least once. It made sense that I should have sent messages there when I needed to get in touch with him. After all, I didn't know where he lived. As for the other night I had mentioned in the postcard, it was impossible for me to say for sure after so much time what this was an allusion to, but it was probably something pretty unsavoury. Most likely I had been referring to arrangements we had made to go out womanizing together, or something along those lines. In those days, Tomoda knew a place up in the Yamate district of the Yokohama Bluff named Number 10, where white girls were available, and from time to time a select number of Tomoda's drinking companions, me included, were allowed to accompany him there. The establishment operated inside a somewhat forbidding-looking European-style building that bore a certain resemblance to a nobleman's mansion, and was not easy for Japanese customers to get inside. But Tomoda was a regular, and with him there to vouch for us, the doors to this wonderland were open wide. Naturally, this filled the rest of us with admiration. Among the pleasure-seeking crowd who gathered at the Café Liberté, Tomoda was considered an extremely useful person to know. He would send word to tip us off whenever an interesting new girl arrived. I must just have received one of these messages when I sent this postcard. I must have arranged to accompany him to number 10, and was writing to make sure he was still free to go as planned. It is hard to think that I would have written to him about anything else. I was soon on intimate terms with the girls at number 10, and before long I took to going there alone. Even so, I was almost certain to find Tomoda there wherever I went. The establishment was run on an impressive scale. Inside a spacious European-style residence was a huge number of rooms. The girls came and went, but 7 or 8 of them were generally there at any given time. The house was run along the same lines as most other bordellos staffed by white girls. A dance floor and bar on the ground floor, and the girls' rooms upstairs. Customers would typically spend some time dancing with a girl or getting to know her over a drink downstairs first. Often when I was sitting with a drink, Tomoda's voice would boom out behind me. "Well, well, well, look who's here," I'd hear him say, chortling as he came up behind me and slapped me on the back. Occasionally, I arrived to find no sign of him. "Is Mr. Tomoda not here this evening?" I'd ask. "He could be upstairs," someone would reply, and then, right on cue, in he would waddle like some sumo wrestler, his flabby bulk swaggering down the staircase. Tomoda was enormously popular with the girls, which may have had something to do with the way he liked to throw his money round. He was stout, almost corpulent, and must have weighed at least 165 pounds. He spoke fluent English and French, and was blessed with natural wit and charm. His every movement and expression showed him to be a sophisticated man of the world. In those days, he was the only Japanese customer who could outdo the foreign clients of the establishment. I never heard any of the girls address him as Mr. Tomoda. At number 10, he was just plain Tom. "You act as if you own the place," I ribbed him once. "Well, maybe I do," he replied matter-of-factly, raising his champagne glass and surveying the clutch of women around him with a glow of self-satisfaction. I said earlier that I didn't know what Tomoda did for a living, but I remember now an odd rumour that began to circulate around this time, prompted by the remarkable amount of time that Tomoda spent at number 10, and the air of confidence he exuded whenever he went there. The story was that Tomoda, despite pretending that he was just another customer, might in fact be the owner, that he had secretly put up the capital for the place, and was now running the whole operation. I don't remember who started the rumour, but once the suggestion had been made, I couldn't help thinking that it sounded plausible enough. As far as I knew, there was nothing to prove the rumours wrong. On the contrary, there was plenty of evidence to support them. What about all those photographs, for example? All of them featured girls who worked at number 10, or who had worked there in the past. How had he managed to collect so many of them? Tomoda's explanation was that he took each girl aside as soon as she arrived and talked her into it in the privacy of one of the rooms upstairs. But it was hard to believe that he would have been able to get away with this game of his if, indeed, a game is all it was, without some special connection to the place, no matter how much money he spent, and how much the girls seemed to like him. Maybe he really was the owner. Perhaps he was admitting it as much by showing me his photographs. Perhaps with me, at least, he was making no attempt to keep it secret. Hadn't he told me once, you know, the next time you need to get in touch, it'd be better sending a card to number 10. It'll reach me quicker that way. And so at some stage I had started to think of him as number 10's owner, or at least its main investor. But perhaps at this point I ought to go back over the chronology. The postcard Shigeko had found in her husband's bag, addressed to Tomoda Kaya of the Café Liberté, was postmarked 7th of May, 1913. This dated it to a time during the first few years of the Taisho era, where Tomoda's favourite haunts were the Café Liberté in Tokyo and number 10 in Yokohama. By the time Shigeku's letter to me arrived in August 1920, however, both the Café Liberté and number 10 had long since shut down. Not that I had lost track of Tomoda. He was merely operating from a different set of headquarters. In Tokyo, the Café Plaiseitin in the Ginza, in Yokohama, Yamate number 27 on the bluff. It probably goes without saying the Plaiseitin was a cafe much like the Liberté, and that the number 27 was a brothel very similar to number 10, staffed once again by white girls. The whole of the Yokohama bluff was reduced to rubble in the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923, and not a trace of the house remains today. In those days it was 7 or 8 blocks up from the Gaiety Theatre, a few streets in on your right as you walked in the direction of Honmoku. The foreign settlement was an area of lush greenery, quiet even during the daytime. The whole district had a foreign and exotic air about it. Number 27 lay on an especially secluded street, hidden behind almost wild, overgrown trees that shielded it from the prying eyes of passerbys. The house had been built around the time the port of Yokohama was opened to foreign trade in the 1860s. Before it became a house of assignation, it no doubt served as the home of some prominent foreigner. In layout and scale, it was very similar to number 10. It was quite luxuriously decorated inside, but from the outside, the size and age of the building combined with its desolate surroundings to give the place an eerie air. In fact, it looked a little haunted. The girls were all fresh-faced new arrivals. There were no survivors from number 10. Almost the only constant from those days, in fact, was Tomoda himself. To my eyes, at least, he showed every sign of having a special connection to the place. Once again, he had amassed a collection of photographs, this time featuring the girls from number 27. But something struck me as strange now that I thought about it. When had he moved from one place to the other? Suddenly, the link between the two eras was no longer clear in my mind. I could have sworn that I had been seeing Tomoda more or less regularly the whole time, but now that I tried to trace my memory back, I realized there was a period when we had lost touch for 2 or 3 years, perhaps 3 or 4. Number 10 had closed down in 1915 or 1916. Of that much I was fairly certain. But by then Tomoda had already been missing for quite some time. It must have been around October 1915 that I heard the girls asking after him. "What's happened to Tom? He never comes round to see us anymore." He stopped coming to the Liberté around then. Time passed and the Café Liberté shut down too. A year or so later, the Café Plaiseitin opened a few blocks over down towards Shimbashi. It was there that I bumped into Tomoda again one night at the end of 1918 or in January 1919. Sometime that winter anyway. I remember an icy wind whistling through the bare branches of the trees. And then, the more I think about it, the more the memories come back. I remember making some remark to him that night at the Plaiseitin about how dull things had been in Yokohama since number 10 closed down. Tomoda grinned. Thought you novelists were supposed to be observant, he said. There's a new place open in Yokohama now, just like the old number 10. And that very same night, or was it a little later, he took me to number 27 for the first time. But the reader has perhaps already been struck by the same suspicions that began to occur to me once I thought things through this far. Namely, that the relationship between Tomoda and Matsunaga went far deeper than I had at first assumed. According to the letter, Shigeko's husband had returned home for the second time in the autumn of 1915. He had remained in the country since till the summer of 1918, when he left home again, and for precisely this period, between the autumn of 1915 and the summer of 1918, I had no recollection of having seen Tomoda once. The whole thing started to seem very strange indeed. I tried to think back to the first time I met him. It must have been around 1908 or 1909. I forget now who it was that introduced us. Or perhaps we weren't introduced at all and just fell into conversation one night when we were both drunk. The details escape me, but I'm pretty sure that our first meeting took place at the Cafe Konosu, which in those days was located in Koamicho in Nihonbashi. Again, though, it was no longer clear to me when we had moved from Konosu to the Cafe Liberté. As I remember it, Tomoda had simply stopped coming to the Konosu at some stage, only to reappear just as suddenly at the Cafe Liberté a few years later. After so many years, I couldn't say for sure exactly how long Tomoda had been missing, but Shigeko's husband had returned home in the autumn of 2009 and left again at the beginning of the summer of 1912. The chronology was remarkably similar. A table of the two men's movements would look something like this. Period 1. Summer 1906 to autumn 1909. Matsunaga Gisuke travelling in the west. Tomoda Ginzo appears for the first time in the Cafe Konosu towards the end of this period. Period 2. Autumn 1909, spring 1912. Matsunaga Gisuke at home in the country. Tomoda Ginzo's whereabouts unknown. Period 3, summer 1912 to autumn 1915. Matsunaga Gisuke's whereabouts unknown. Tomoda Ginzo active at the Cafe Liberté and number 10. Period 4, autumn 1915 to summer 1918. Matsunaga Gisuke at home in the country. Tomoda Ginzo whereabouts unknown. Period 5, summer 1918 to present 1920. Matsunaga Gisuke whereabouts unknown. Tomoda Ginzo active at the Cafe Placentin and number 27. For periods 1 and 2, my memories of Tomoda Ginzo's movements were far from clear. But unless I was seriously mistaken, it seemed safe to assume that the same 4-year cycle had been in operation all the way from 1909 to present. Whenever Matsunaga was at home in the country, Tomoda's whereabouts were unknown, and during the periods where Tomoda was active in the Tokyo to Yokohama area, Matsunaga was nowhere to be found. I lay in bed pondering the strange details of the case. I felt compelled to consider matters further. I drew up a mental chronology similar to the one that I have sketched out above, and went over it carefully. I picked up Shigeko's letter and read it over again several times. Everything seemed to point to the same conclusion. I could no longer be sure that Tomoda and Matsunaga were not the same person. I placed a photograph of the family in pilgrim's clothes on my pillow and peered at it again. Tomoda Ginzo might be an alias he was using, she had written. Shigeko herself, then, clearly had her suspicions. But the impression I got from the old-fashioned retouched photograph she had enclosed was that Matsunaga bore no resemblance to Tomoda at all, either in face or build. Of course, it is not true that the camera never lies. People often look quite different in photographs, and pilgrimage clothes in particular might make a whole person's whole character appear quite differently too. But there was simply no way that someone as chubby as Tomoda could be made to look as thin as the man in this photograph. Tomoda was practically obese. Matsunaga, according to this photograph, was tall and slim. Tomoda's face was so round he looked as if his cheeks were about to burst. Matsunaga had sunken cheeks and a sharp triangular face. They were a study in opposites, one of them jovial, the other gloomy. A person might put on weight and lose it any number of times over the course of a lifetime, but Tomoda's appearance hadn't changed a bit in all the years since I first met him at Konosu. What about Matsunaga? What was it about that Shigeo had said about her husband? Although he has never been seriously ill, my husband has always had a weak constitution? Or the ring that was clearly much too large for his own finger? These remarks made it clear that Matsunaga had been as thin as he was in the photograph for many years. She had also written that the family had made fruitless inquiries overseas as well as throughout Japan both times he had disappeared, whereas Tomoda lived at the center of Ginza cafe society, and he was always to be found at the Pleasanton, just as I had found him there the other night. If Tomoda and Matsunaga really were the same person, was it conceivable that this fact could have escaped the detection for so long? And was this kind of brazen behavior really what one would expect from someone like Matsunaga, whose last words to his wife before leaving had been to remind her that she had no hope of tracing him, no matter how hard she tried? These were not questions I could answer on my own, and however long I lay in bed pondering them, I would have to confront Tomoda and see how he reacted. I was busy with work that day, but I managed to finish it in the evening and set out that night for the Ginza, hoping to catch Tomoda at the Pleasanton. If he didn't show up there, I would go to Yokohama and look for him at number 27. I knew from experience that Tomoda Ginzo was not a difficult man to find. Okay, for a short story. I mean, okay, I guess if the other stories took me like 3 months to read, I guess something that has 5 chapters probably is only going to take 5 weeks. So I guess comparatively it is a short story. Page turning. 1 hour stream where I actually just read in silence, but you actually just get the page turning. Was thinking actual short story. Yeah, last week we had a story that we managed to read in one week, in one sitting. It only took about an hour, slightly less. But this time it looks like this one's going to take about a month to read, maybe. Apparently I've been 2 minutes behind. Yeah, YouTube is a little strange. If they think you're behind, like if there's internet issues or stuff, you'll end up falling behind the actual live stream. It's quite strange. I don't quite know how YouTube works. But yeah, there we go. Ugh. So yeah, I think we'll end up continuing with that next week, so we'll stick with the story of Tomoda and Matsunaga next week, since I still haven't got my collection of books for me to do a proper survey. That's the word I was looking for. And yeah, there we go. But also, hello, can you smell it? And hello, so cute as well. Hello, hello. Tomato is a real one. Tomato's definitely a bro. I actually hear about a lot of places like that though. Not just places for adult services, but apparently there are certain places in Japan, like certain bars, just bars with food and drink, that they don't actually let you in unless you've either been before or you're invited by a regular, because they end up they've got like a certain they operate in a really specific way where you don't have to worry about paying while you're there. You literally don't even think about money or anything. You don't have to bring your wallet. You just come, you get drinks, you get food, and then you get a bill like a month later in the post. But it all relies on like a trust system, and if you don't pay your bill, then the person who introduced you to the place has to pay your bill. And so you only get introduced if you're like a trustworthy person. So apparently those kind of things are quite common, and unless that video was lying to me and it wasn't just about a bar and it was about a more mature establishment. None of the comments implied that was the case though, so I don't think I was being lied to. Also, my music paused again while I was in the middle of reading. I'm mad. Don't pause. Is there some... It was common here still pre-World War II. Expensive. Oh, it's like... Oh, I've heard of gentlemen's clubs. But obviously I'm a cat, so what is it? What's the other? There's like another group that's like quite well known for like you have to be specifically like invited or like in the in-group to go there. For Freemasons? Is that? I have a vague knowledge of many things. Illuminati. I don't know, maybe the Illuminati fit in that category, but yeah, I was thinking of the Freemasons, I think. Yeah. It's one of those things that's really weird to me, because I don't really have any contacts, like full stop. So the idea of there being places that you can only go if you very specifically get invited is kind of wild. Comparing the Freemasons to is it really? I genuinely don't know much about them. I really don't know much about either of them. I guess it's just something I've not really thought about looking into. I hear people talking about Freemasons in like hushed tones, but I don't know why. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, do I want to look into this, or will it get me into trouble? Like, I remember, I went down a really... I know, I've got so much to talk about, because I didn't stream today. Do you mind if I just keep talking for a little bit? I remember, I went kind of like headfirst into a conspiracy theory a while ago. I really like conspiracy theories. I really like researching them, and I used to have a book when I was younger all about conspiracy theories, about stuff like the stuff everyone knows, like the Bermuda Triangle, and then like Area 51, and then like a bunch of other stuff. But one day I discovered the conspiracy theory about celebrities and famous people making a forever young elixir out of the adrenaline of children before they were killed. And oh my god, I spent like 2 weeks going absolutely insane over the research. Like, there was so many rabbit holes to like go into about stuff like that. To this day, if I haven't god. Yeah, to this day I'm still kind of like, what the fuck was that? Like, there was so much information about it. Was it... Can I really think it... No, I can't think about it. I can't... If I think about it again, I'll go down a... Oh god, the Wayfarers thing! They're selling the fucking furniture that's got children's names. Yeah, I do remember that. That shit was... Oh my god, literally, all of that stuff was insane. But yeah, I really went headfirst into all that stuff. But then it kind of... Some of the kids that... Oh really? Well, that's good. I like the idea that people have been debunking some of that stuff, because honestly, if the stuff about adrenochrome is like, if any of that's real, that's fucked up. that's really messed up. Was David in it? David who? Huh? Oh god. We're talking about conspiracy theories. Hello, Numbers. Hi, there's raids here? Yeah, it's a redirect. Greetings. Hi, Numbers. How was stream? How was Deuce X? Numbers is a real Did you not know Numbers was a real person? Greetings, welcome everyone. We're talking about conspiracy theories. We're talking about messed up conspiracy theories that may or may not be real. How y'all doing? Oh wow, thanks for holding that refill review, YouTube. I punched people in the face, it was very nice. Hell yeah. But yeah, welcome everyone. This is my first redirect I've ever had on YouTube. But greetings. Hello. My name is Purity Valentine. I am a cat ? Not a cat, but not a cat. I mostly stream on Twitch, but I've started streaming on YouTube a little bit as well. But hello everyone. Hello Numbers. Hello Lucky Oreo. Hello Evil Bird. Hello Ryan. David, you'll know from his I've heard about these lizard people theories. But honestly, I feel like the roots of some of those are a little bit what's the term? They're rooted in kind of like hateful beliefs rather than kind of like a place of like worry and concern, if that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, some conspiracy theories are absolutely out there. I love how what's the one I heard about? There was one that was like, oh yeah, so turns out that humans used to be really peaceful, and then like some dudes from Mars, they were like all killing each other on Mars, and they were like, oh, we're all killing each other on Mars, so we're gonna go to Earth now and kill all the people on Earth, and that's apparently how men exist. It's never thought I'd see the word. I love conspiracy theories, even if some of them are a little bit unhinged. Just spirits. Oh yeah, wasn't that the dude who he makes the videos where he says that he's got like one of the Egyptian gods like in his DMs, right? I would if Anubis wants to DM me on Discord, tough. I won't do that. Yeah, I had someone watched to Space Odyssey in a fever dream. Yeah, like there are conspiracy theories that make sense. There are conspiracy theories that are like, oh, they happened a long time ago in the past, so things like weren't as easily explained with like science and stuff back then, and now it's too far away that we can't really tell what happened. And then there's just people who are like, by the way, I'm insane, and that's just their entire theory. You know what? Good on them for making huge YouTube videos of just absolute unhinged stuff. You know, it gives something to pass the time sometimes. You know, if you ever need reminding that you are you're a relatively sane person, just go watch conspiracy theory videos. Obviously be careful of the type of conspiracy theory videos. I felt like I was literally ending up on a watch list looking into the adrenochrome stuff. I felt like it was not a good idea for me to carry on going down that rabbit hole. Is this the story? No, I'm just talking now. My favourite conspiracy theory is the one from the Minions of huh? Wait, that's a new one. I haven't heard that one before. The Minions from the Mark of Cain, huh? Wait, but the Minions from Despicable Me are just little yellow dudes. Mud flood? Oh god. Hold on, I wanna Oh boy, I feel like there's gonna yeah, I'm gonna look into that. I'm gonna look into that later. But then there's also, I feel like this isn't really on the topic of conspiracy theories, but I feel like it's all, for me, I always like learning about things that then always have a bunch of conspiracy theories come from. Like, New Zealandia. So you guys, something that was found rather recently is that the continent of, there's actually a whole landmass east of New Zealand that was probably above water, but obviously it's all underneath water now, and the only thing that's left is New Zealand, and that's supposed to be its whole continent now. And so obviously there are people who are like, oh, that must be Atlantis and stuff like that. But I'm actually really curious to know if we can do like excavations and stuff and see if there's any like human history in that. I think you're the one I like. Yeah, I've spoken about it on stream before. Did you ever look up dog? I did. I didn't go into depth. I didn't look into depth, but I did look into it. Yes. Yeah, that's the it's the landmass between. That's the European one, right? Yeah. But yeah, I really. I feel like we don't do enough digging It's really messed up. Okay, humans, they'll drill into the earth to get oil and stuff. Whatever, who cares about that stuff? It's oil. No one cares about that. Did you guys hear about the there is the largest man-made hole on Earth is in northwest Russia, on the border, near the border to, I think, Norway, and they got something like 26 kilometers down before it reached about 180 Celsius. But they found some really like weird stuff while they were digging down. Like they found water like way further down than they expected to. They found rock that acted like plastic, but maybe that was just because of the pressure and heat and stuff. We also, humans haven't explored the Marianas Trench enough. We need to. There's so much cool stuff about Earth. There's so much cool Earth stuff. The masculine. It's true. That really is a masculine. That really is one of the masculine urges. Whenever I go to a beach, there's always a group of 4 or 5 guys who just have dug a big hole in the beach, and that's it. They're just doing that. There really is the masculine urge to dig a hole. One of the bright sides of global warming is land. Bright sides. It's a side. It's definitely a side. It is interesting though. There's lots of interesting things about Antarctica that can kind of be glazed from the ice caps melting. I think I am most curious from a microbiology point of view, and a virology point of view, because they've already mentioned like water pockets that have dormant viruses and bacteria that haven't been on Earth for like thousands of years. It's like interesting. It's like, so fun fact, most Europeans have some sort of immunity to bubonic plague due to the fact that 1/3 of the population of Europe died to the bubonic plague back when, the Black Plague was kind of a big problem, kind of a big period of time that happened for hundreds of years. But some of the survivors, a lot of the survivors were not people who just avoided the bubonic plague. They were people who survived the bubonic plague. So, on that basis, are there humans who have immunities to some of these diseases that haven't been around for, say, 20,000 years? Because humans have been around for over 20,000 years. Well, Homo sapiens have-ish. Not quite like the modern human has existed for, like, longer than that, but it's just interesting. Anyway, I've kind of gone off on a I've really kind of gone off on one of those tangents today. This is why I have to stream, guys. If I don't stream, I just get full of information, and I can't help. I can't stop myself. Disease resistance is one of the biggest reasons colonization of the Americas happened. I actually I watched a video recently from there's a dude who, I think I've talked about him before on my channel, Max Miller's Tasting History. He did an episode about Thanksgiving and the very first Thanksgiving, and he went into the story about how like the first settler, well, some of the early settlers only settled into the area they did because, number one, a guy who had been captured into the slave trade had been taken to England, and then he'd managed to get all the way back to America to then come back to where he used to live to find it been wiped out by illness. To then years later, this random pack, Squanto, yeah. To then this bunch of people wanting to find a new land come across this guy who's speaking perfect English, and they manage to survive because they teach them how to live on the land. Like, that's a huge series of coincidences, series of events that's just, like, if that had gone any other way, it wouldn't have ended like that. If the illness hadn't happened and wiped out Squanto's original peoples, then, you know, the pilgrimage, the people wouldn't have been able to settle on the land. But then if they hadn't been there in the first place, and that guy hadn't gone to England and learnt English and then come back, they wouldn't have learnt how to live there because everything that they tried to grow there died. Squanto's my boy. He kind of occupies the social studies class time. Oh, really? Yeah, so we don't learn about it very much in English history class. We learn... There's a lot of monarchy stuff. Mary Queen of Scots, Henry VIII, World War I and II. I'd say the only thing that really we learn about America is we have a very brief Civil War bit. We learn a bit about the Civil War. Not much though. I could not... If you asked me questions about the Civil War, I would not be able to answer many of them. And then the slave trade in general, we learn a decent amount about. Doesn't touch on the worldwide really? No, we don't learn a lot about the worldwide imperialism stuff. Gotta kind of learn that stuff in our own time if we want to know that kind of stuff. Weird that. But yeah, we do learn a little bit, but just like I didn't find out about stuff like India. I knew Gandhi was a guy who existed. I had no idea what he actually did until I was probably about, I want to say like 18, 19 years old. Like and obviously I finished school when I was 16. I haven't done a history class since I was 14. So, yeah, kind of wild. Like, I understand I'm not teaching that kind of stuff to, like, primary school children, but, geez, I really kind of wish we hadn't focused so much on World War I and II. More American soldiers died in Civil War than World War II, so it's not anything like the European Wars. The thing is, we really don't learn that much about, like, the, like, European wars in English history either. In fact, like, really think about it, we learn nothing. Maybe I would have learned more if I actually took it as a subject, but obviously, it's interesting. When I was 12, a family friend of mine was like, "Oh, you find history boring?" And I was like, "Yes, my teacher sucks. He sounds monotonous. Literally hate him. He can't pronounce Hiroshima and Nagasaki's names correctly, and it pisses me off because I'm a weeb." Real, by the way. The way he said Hiroshima, like, just made me want to throttle him. And he was like, "Yeah, but you're probably gonna really like history when you're older and you can just research it yourself." And I was like, "Yeah, maybe." He was right. History is really interesting. history not compulsory, dropped when 13. When I was 14, yeah. I picked my subjects for my GCSEs when I was 14, and yeah, history was not one of the ones I picked. I was like, yep, no, good, bye, not doing that. Did you learn about the Chinese Opium Wars? No, actually did not. In fact, I don't think, other than a very brief touch on the Vietnam War, like, I mean brief. I mean, like, by the way, the horrors of war are real, napalm is real. Okay, anyway, back to World War II. Yeah, we don't really learn much about the East at all. Well, and obviously the nukes falling on Japan. That was kind of a big subject for some reason. Extra maths, please. I took extra maths, and I didn't mind maths. I was good at maths, so I was like, yeah, give me maths. Easy maths, though. Our school systems are way more different than I thought. Well, when you keep in mind that when I was in school, compulsory education was only up until you were 16. Meanwhile, you guys have been like high school until you're 18 for like as long as I can remember. You guys have been like that. So, people rag on the US for not covering its atrocities. I think the UK does. I think the main problem with the UK and its atrocities is that the UK has way more atrocities to cover. They're like, okay, we need to cover something the UK did, and they get out like the frickin' Oedipus-sized book. Like, all right, what do you wanna cover? And they're like, I don't know, just open a page. I gotta say, there's there isn't that much like pride in country taught here though. So while we're not taught, by the way, the UK was really bad in the like the UK, you know did really bad things. We're also not taught like, oh, by the way, UK is the best, England is the best, love England, let's make sure to pledge allegiance to the flag and the king and the queen and the, like, we don't get any of that. So I feel like it's balanced, just in kind of an odd way. We'll catch up one day. God, please don't. It's been, yeah, the US has only existed like 200 years. Like the US of A is 200 years or something, right? Pledge of Allegiance is... It is! I honestly thought it was so fake. Like, I thought it was fake. I did not think that people did that. I did not think that people, like, stood up and were like, yeah. Colonies might have... Oh, I see. Okay, I was about 50 years off. You can do a lot of things in 50 years. Hello, Robert. How you doing? I refused to do it once just to see what happened. My science teacher was... Oh my... What the... See, I don't understand that. See, like, there's things... Like, if God Save the King, played, you know, you would get people who would stand up to, you know, the song and stay silent during the song. But if someone didn't, then, you know, maybe some older people might give them a bit of a glare, but no one would really freak out about it. The UK's been tapped since the Anglo-Saxons arrived. I'm technically of, technically I only came over to the UK because of the Vikings, so my human heritage is Vikings, so I... and brother in Vinland Saga. Can we blame the French? Weren't they last to invade us? 1066. I don't know if they were the last to invade us. I mean, they definitely did. No, I feel like if we can blame anything, we can just blame the fact that the royal conglomerate of Europe, where they basically just were like, oh, by the way, would you like a new royal here? Marry your cousin from France. And they were like, yeah, okay. And there was just... Europe may have been lots of different separate countries in the medieval era, but it was all the rich people were basically related. It was basically one family. Blame Austria? Oh god, hugs. Do I even want to show this? Yeah. Yeah. Either way, history, really interesting, really messed up, really interesting, but Jesus Christ, what were they doing? There's some gruesome history. You might say it's horrible histories. Oh, we should do some watch along. We should do watch alongs of horrible history stuff. If people ran across borders, why wouldn't royals marry too? Well, the problem is with royals marrying across borders is that they were only marrying like their cousin from Germany, and their half sister from France and stuff like that. No, honestly, yeah, I don't know how they managed to make history boring. History is such an interesting subject with so many little tangents and like there's loads of different focuses. Like, what do you want to focus on? Do you want to focus on battles? You want to focus on royalty? You want to focus on food? You want to focus on the rise and falls of empires? Like, history teachers, shakes my head. Period of Valentine's the best history. I don't know. Do I have anyone to compete against? Are there any other history tubers out there? History of writing. Yeah, you can go in. Here's an interesting history fact: is that a lot of the false history that we think is true but actually isn't is because in the Victorian ages, the Victorians were like, all right, history. We're going to create so much history, and in history they made up so much random crap. And they were like, yeah, this is truth. And everyone's like, okay, well, they say that, and at the time it was like, well, is that really truth? But now, because it's historical history, it's hard to tell if it's real or not. Oh, it's so messed up. It's so all over the place. Oh, my playlist ended. Start it from the beginning. There we go. One day you'll collab with John Green, you can ask him if he did. I was on Tumblr when that Tumblr post happened. History of writing history, exactly. Who writes it down first? That's also another thing. Oh, I once had a acquaintance who was, he was Native American, but he had been, I don't know the terms he used exactly, it was a few years ago, but he was learning to be one of the storytellers for his Native American tribe, but he ended up kind of getting kicked out because of something to do with coyotes. But all of like Native American history is orally passed down through the ages. It's not written. And so there is so much history that probably exists in forms that I'm sorry, I just hit the mic. I'm very sorry if that was loud. Like, there is so much history out there that still exists, that only exists in spoken language, and then also so much history that has been lost because people died. Aborigine, the Native Australian. I know. People are really sad. People are really sad about stuff like the Library of Alexandria, and I think there was one in the Middle East as well that was also a very big library that burnt down. And yes, lots of information was lost, also very bad. But there's so much oral history lost, there's so much written history lost, there's so much... If stuff wasn't literally written on rock, we basically don't know it anymore. It was normal volume. What is the normal volume of me accidentally hitting you in the face? Because that's basically what me hitting this mic is. I'm sorry I accidentally hit you in the face. Imagine all the language death happening too. It makes me really happy to know there are lots of like initiatives for reviving languages that have been lost. Stuff that's obviously more known, like Irish Gaelic, but then like all the Native American ones, and then like there's lots of like Indian dialects from like specific tribes and stuff. I don't know if tribes is the right word to use there, I'm sorry if it's not. There's just so much information and stuff. Like your local town's idiocrat. Oh, that's also true. That's also true. There's something that's almost a little bit sad about it. Do you guys know about plague towns? So I'm reminded because I mentioned the Black Plague earlier, but there are towns in Europe that have fully, I don't want to say maintained, but basically there are villages that have been frozen in time because they were lost during the plague. Everyone in them died to the plague, and then the foliage simply grew around it. And so it's not a perfect like time capsule, but everything there is untouched by the modern human. On the bright side, some oral history evolved into religion, so we get an idea of older stories by looking at yeah. Some stuff it's really interesting to compare the similarities. I'm so glad I get to be here at the moment where the timeline splits and you become the biggest contributor on Curiosity. Even the English language has tons of local varieties. It does. I mean, they still very much exist. They're not as strong as they used to be. But obviously, back in the day, it used to be a few days, like, walk from town to town. So the dialect differences were very much stronger. I mean, I think I'm an example of a type of person who ended up with a more muddled accent. You guys from America can probably tell I have a British accent. But there are people from where I live who can't tell where I'm from, even though I'm literally from where they're from. People can kind of place me like mid-England. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's close enough. But then there are people that are like, oh yeah, you're from this exact village in this exact town, and I can tell because of the way you say certain words. And that's insane, and that's really cool actually. You're heavily British transatlantic. Well, hopefully I won't lose my accent. My accent's very, very malleable, so differences probably start at 16 kilometers. Yeah, I mean the big cities in England are normally a decent few miles apart, even like close ones, of which I can't think of any towns that are very close together other than ones where I live, and I don't want to reveal that information. And even those normally have pretty different dialects. With cars, it gets leveled out easier, yeah. I mean, so many people I know move down to London and live in London for a while and then come back up and then live somewhere else. It's interesting. But yeah, anyway, I've ended up going on for a little bit longer than I expected. Hopefully I'll be able to stream next week. Do my normal art stream in the daytime, and that'll be fine. It's too bad. I never got a chance to watch Mr. Void, and I heard things about him. Just chatting is fine. Is it not slightly disconcerting because you can actually? I guess you guys can actually hear me moving as I talk. He has a YouTube channel. Oh, does he have like the archives of stuff he's done? I'm only aware of his Twitch channel. They're still interesting as. Oh, he did. Okay, cool. Alright, VOD archive. Let's go. See what. Yeah, thank you for coming to the reading, and then thank you as well for letting me talk about stuff. We have internet historian instead. We do. Alright, but yeah, I'm gonna head off for the night, and I don't know what I'm doing. Next stream is Sunday on Twitch, playing my JRPG Eternal Sanita. Next Thursday, I am going to stream on my. I'm going to go stream every day of the week that I schedule it, even if it's only a little bit. I know I'm dealing with like a med change and stuff, but honestly, it's just annoying dealing with my brain being all weird. You gonna read news about Twitter? Oh god, what's going on about Twitter? Yeah, it's just frustrating, you know. The whole med situation is just a pain. It's like the dizziness. It's not like vertigo. I'm not here like can't walk basically. It's just like a constant background radiation of just a slight unbalancedness. It's annoying. Stream for 10 minutes to say hi. Yeah, even if I can't do anything else, I will press that start stream button. So many people have graduated recently. I'm not gonna let myself be one of the people who are like, ooh, slight hiatus. No, I'm not taking a break. I'm not. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but it's usually. My doctor isn't very helpful. I need to change doctors, really. But anyway, I'm gonna leave you guys for the night, or else I'm literally gonna not stop talking. We're gonna be here until like 6 a.m. and some of you probably have stuff to do and the like. So, thank you. Honestly, I don't think I could stop streaming. I really don't think I could stop streaming. There's just even if I get a little bit Manhera and a little bit all over the place sometimes, it's really what I enjoy. It's really what I love doing. So even if I sometimes get a little bit spooked, the debut of this model had me a little frightened. I know a lot of people are like, oh wow, I really want to make it big. I really want to make it like I have so many. Oh my god, it's so scary to have that many people. Oh, I don't like. I don't. Oh, like thank you for coming to support me, but wow, that was a lot of people. Oh my god. Anyway. Oh no, talking to me. Anyway. Besides the point. I'm gonna head off. I will see you guys on Sunday. Is there anything else I need to say? I don't think so. So, until I see the Ocean Sport versus the Ocean Desire for Comfy My Eternal Sugar, who knows? Have fun RuneScape. How did you know that that's what I was thinking of doing? No, I need to get myself a drink. I haven't had a drink for a while. So yeah, take care of yourselves. Get something to eat if you need to. Get something to drink, like I will. It's bullying Period by supporting her to get over 1,000. Oh god, that really is bullying. Please don't do that to me. Do you know how bad I would feel? Like, if I miss people's messages, I watch my VODs and I see a message I missed and I'm like, how could I betray this person like this? So I'm a mess. I either need to learn how to speak faster. No, that's it. That's what I need to do. I need to learn how to speak faster, and you guys need to keep up. Alright, good luck everyone. But yeah, get some sleep. Get some rest. See you on Sunday. Yeah. And thank you, as before. Numbers, if you're still here, thank you very much for the redirect. And thank you everyone for coming to my YouTube streams, even though this isn't my usual place. I do appreciate it. But yeah, good night, good night, good night. Bye. Hey.